Khristina Williams, happy WNBA Monday. Thank you so much for joining me on the day after we had some game fours of the WNBA semifinals. And while one series is going to a game five, the Phoenix Mercury have punched their ticket, Khristina, to the WNBA Finals, a team that you believed so much in, with Alyssa Thomas, Satou Sabally, and Kahleah Copper leading the way in their first season after the Diana Taurasi era. Yes, Kahleah Copper was their last season, but there were only two remaining players from last year's team. Alyssa Thomas comes over and leads the way for this team, and Kahleah Copper and Satou Sabally complete that big three, and here they are headed to the WNBA Finals the season after Diana Taurasi retired. What do you make of that, Khristina Williams?
I know that the Phoenix Mercury and Khalisah Copper are currently searching for preseason predictions as receipts to use as bulletin material. And I just want to say, if you roll the tape on, my preseason prediction, I did not believe in this Phoenix Mercury team. I was not one of those people who said, yeah, I could see them in the finals. I don't think anyone could have imagined that this team would make it to the WNBA finals. And so I quickly changed that a little bit before All-Star weekend when this team started to get rolling and the experience really started to play out. This is a team with a combined 8 finals appearances when you talk about the roster and its buildup. And credit to Nick Urin, who put together this roster starting in 2024 through free agency, through trades to get Kahleah Copper some help post Diana Taurasi, post Brittany Griner. And what a surprise. They've been able to make it to the WNBA finals. And for me, I think their defense is the story of what they've been able to do in the postseason. The Phoenix Mercury, they lead the league in defensive rating at 91.5, which is the best defensive rating by any team in postseason since 2015. And they also lead the league in steals. So their defense is offsetting their offense, their physicality, their aggression. They're playing with a sense of urgency that we haven't seen them play. But also, when you think about the experience on this team, there are players, a combined 5 WNBA champions on this team. And just as much as the big three is important to this team, I think the role players have also been just as important. Sammy Whitcomb coming off the bench with her 3-point shooting, her defense, DeWanna Bonner, providing an impact on both sides of the floor as well. And these are two players who also have 2 WNBA champions apiece. And so, the veteranship and the experience-ship of this team is definitely showing in the postseason. And this is where it's supposed to show up, right? And so no surprise that the Phoenix Mercury was able to eliminate number 1, Minnesota Lynx, who was down their star player, Nafisa Collier, and also missing an impact player like Dejanay Carrington, and their head coach, Cheryl Reeve.
For sure. And speaking of head coaches, we have to give a shout out to Nate Tibbetts, who we saw a moment ago on the screen, because Nate Tibbetts has been criticized. He, the first year in Phoenix, I guess you could say was a little bumpy, but when they finally put a team around him that would play to his coaching philosophies, and that started with Alyssa Thomas, and a team was built around her based on her skill set. We see what he was able to do, and now he has this team in the WNBA Finals. So you have to give a shout out for him. He did not win Coach of the Year this year, but he was one of the names in that conversation because what he's been doing with this Phoenix Mercury team. Also, I'm just gonna toot my own horn, okay, because while many may have doubted the Phoenix Mercury, Kahleah Copper, if you are listening to this or watching at any point, I'm just going to read. I pulled it up on my phone, what I said about the Phoenix Mercury in my preseason rankings, if you will. Okay? Let's just go here to the final paragraph. I won't, go through it all, but I will say that I had them ranked 5th. And I do my power rankings by tiers, so I had them as a potential contender. But in my closing, I said 3 top 20 players on the same team with Alyssa Thomas, the engine, at the helm likely makes the Mercury a contender. But the team is top heavy, and similar to the Fever, they could face some growing pains trying to develop chemistry in the first season. With so many new pieces coming together, for now, the Mercury land at 5th, but they are definitely a potential contender. So, yeah, I knew once I consider you a contender, that means I think you can make it to the WNBA Finals. So those words are in ink. It's on wax. You can check it. Natalie Esquire's preseason rankings for NBC Sports. So, hey, look over here, Satu. When y'all are talking about, people disrespecting your team, NBC Sports was not one of them.
That's a good one, Natalie. But truly, this team is a team that has proven everyone wrong, right? And I think that when I look at the last stretch of games for the Phoenix Mercury, there are two games in particular that stand out. And that's game 2 against the New York Liberty when they were able to win on the road, which was the largest margin of victory in postseason history for the WNBA playoffs. And then that 20-point comeback in overtime for the win against the Minnesota Lynx in game 2 as well. That's the story of the Phoenix Mercury team, is that they always find a way, right? No matter if they're up by a lot or if they need to crawl back to find a way to victory. This is a team that has the chemistry, as you said, with the big three at the helm and the experience. And so no surprise that they're punching their tickets to the WNBA Finals.
Yeah, they like to pull off comebacks. Look at this. Even last night, to win that game 3, the Minnesota Lynx went into the 4th, up 13 points. Khristina, and still they allowed the Mercury to come back. Only 2 teams have ever been able to pull off the actual win in WNBA history until last night when the Phoenix Mercury became the 3rd team. And so they have a penchant for coming back. Probably not great that they get down in games, but we know that this team is relentless. They will come back. They won't quit. And like you already mentioned, they have a very, very stingy defense. And so, hey, one thing I do have to point out, though, is the play of Satu Sabally. Satu's first game of the playoffs, she had not the greatest showing, and people were like, really coming at her. And then ever since that, versus the New York Liberty and on, she's been great in these playoffs. And she was great again last night for the Phoenix Mercury. And of course, so was Alyssa Thomas. But, just focusing on Satu Sabally for a moment, for a while, she was keeping them in the game. She was the one making sure they stayed within distance until everyone else could show up to help her. She finished with 21, 6, and 3 3-point makes. And then, Alyssa Thomas, of course, a double-double, a near triple-double, 23 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, doing what she always does. They've just been really great. And, we know that Kahleah Copper rounds out that big 3, but her energy throughout this series, the going back and forth with Courtney Williams, who obviously they've played together and have a relationship, but that was fun. She got really big key defensive stops when they needed it, or hit timely threes when they needed it. She was so instrumental, and the 3 of them have a really great dynamic and energy. And, look, what can we say? The Mercury rose to the occasion, What is that saying? Mercury rising? They did it. And, now they are waiting to figure out who they're going to play in these playoffs. So, again, shout out to the Phoenix Mercury. And, I will go on record saying I did not pick them to win this series. I picked Minnesota Lynx in 5. But to me, anytime you pick a series to go 5 games, that's a pick 'em, and it could go either way. I understand that if you pick against them, they're going to look at it as like they're underdogs. I get that. But I didn't really see that many predictions, Khristina, that had this series going less than 5. So I think everyone believed that this team was capable of winning this series, even if Minnesota Lynx were the favorite team. And Minnesota Lynx are going to be the favorite team. They were the number 1 team all season. That's just, how it goes. But before this series started, Alyssa Thomas told us that the Lynx had not seen them at full strength, which is true. They did not have their big 3 for a large portion of the season. And, while unfortunately the Minnesota Lynx did lose Napheesa Collier in this series, she did not play in yesterday's game. And as you mentioned, they were down a really important piece in Dejanay Carrington. I don't want to discredit what the Mercury did in any way. They had already had a season series lead 2-1 before last night's game. And so, that is what it is. But when you speak about a team like the Lynx, they fall short of their hopes at, running it back to the finals. Obviously, they wanted to complete that quest this year, Khristina, and actually win the WNBA Finals. They were on a mission from day one. And, you know, you saw Nafisa there on the scooter because she injured her ankle. Coach Reeve wasn't there, you know, their assistant had to coach the game, as you mentioned earlier, Khristina, because of some commentary she made about the refs and also to the refs for being somewhat demonstrative towards them in the last game, after she was sort of fed up with fouls throughout the game, but also on the play where Nafisa Collier got injured, which was not ruled a foul. And the NBA official ref account on X decided to let us know that that play was called correctly. But I think that Cheryl's reaction was just a reaction to seeing her MVP on the court, and also just the whole game, in her opinion, not being called the way that it should have. And so with that being said, the Minnesota Lynx fall short and they do not even make it back to the finals. What's your thoughts on the Minnesota Lynx, Khristina?
I think that they have a season that they should be proud of. Obviously, it sucks when you fall short of that goal consecutive seasons in a row. But in terms of what Cheryl did, obviously the league did what they did. But I think her passion for her players, it would make you want to run through a brick wall. You know, Cheryl Reeve is one of the greatest coaches in WNBA history for a reason. And prior to this season, I had the opportunity to speak to WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert on my podcast. In case you missed it, and we discussed, you know, the speculation about the refereeing, the officiating, and Kathy just emphasized that the league goes through a thorough process in being able to get these referees, especially for high stake games in the playoffs. But it's definitely been a topic of conversation, not only amongst the Minnesota Lynx, but across all of the series in the playoffs as well. So looking ahead, I'm interested in knowing how the league will address how referees are picked, not only in the postseason, but in the regular season as well. And if they will change some of the process in terms of how things work and the points of emphasis, especially because you don't want your star players on teams or in the league out in the biggest moments. And so that's what I'm interested in, how the league will respond to that. But I think the Lynx, you know, they have something great to look forward to. Eric Tebow, I think that was his audition tape for some of the
Yes.
coach openings in terms of expansion and some of the positions available now for head coaching. You know, he coached on the Mystics and he did a great job last night. The team definitely tried to stick in the game as much as they can, but at the end, the Mercury was able to edge them out. But I think that this is a season they should be proud of, considering all of the adversity in the postseason, losing two key pieces like Collier and Carrington.
For sure. You know, Andrew Dukowitz, D-U-K-O-W-I-T-Z, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's a beat reporter for the Minnesota Lynx, and he did like a really deep dive to the extent he could on the referees, their backgrounds. I would really encourage people to go check out what he wrote, because after, you know, Cheryl Reeve made her comments, Becky Hammond echoed her and said, like, she didn't hear like a lie told. And then also Steph White of the Indiana Fever said she was also aligned with what Coach Reeve said. So, and based on Andrew's reporting, it does seem like there is not a lot of information available about the experience of these referees. And based on what is available, they don't always seem to be the most experienced referees. So I have to imagine, with all this attention, that you would hope the league starts to address that in the future going forward. But I do want to make clear, in no way am I suggesting that the play on Nafisa Collier was, you know, a bad play or anything. Alyssa Thomas got a clean steal, and unfortunately, injuries are just a part of the playoffs. So, you know, it's unfortunate. We never want to see fee go out like that, any player, or a season end like that for a player or a team. But like you said, I think the Lynx, I think they still have a bright future to look ahead to. And also, shout out again to the Phoenix Mercury. They await who they will play in the finals, either the Indiana Fever or Las Vegas Aces. But congratulations on making it to the finals. Khristina, thank you for joining me for the WNBA on NBC. Guys, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you do not miss out on this WNBA postseason coverage.